Hi, hello, welcome back. Uh, this is the session number one, Separator Firewall AWS deployments training. Um, the name is, this section is Amazon Web Services Explained. So let's move on then. There are four specific concepts and services that we want to um, explain here. There are several different services I may say hundreds of different services included in Amazon Web Services. But those four concepts here are the ones that I like to make clear as we're going to use it through all the coming sessions. So the first one is the one related to how you build your uh, virtual private cloud that is called the Amazon VPC service. Amazon Private Cloud it is the one that lets you provision a private isolated section in the AWS cloud where you can launch different services. So anytime you're using Amazon services, they are associated to a specific private cloud that belongs only to you. You have complete control over your virtual networking environment, including selection of IP address ranges, creation of subnettings, configuration of routing tables, network gateways, etc., etc., etc. So here on the diagram, we see this is the architecture of a specific layout of a VPC. You see the AWS cloud is the big container where all the VPCs are hosted. Um, the VPC, which is your private cloud, is going to be hosted always in one region. So the region in this case, in the example you see here, it says US East 1. This VPC is hosted in the US East 1 region. Inside your VPC, you have your subnets. So when you create a VPC, you assign an IP network address, and then you can subnet and create different subnettings inside for different purposes. In this case, we are showing a public subnet and a private subnet. And we call it public because this is the one that is going to have somehow facing connectivity to the outside. And this one here is the one that is going to be hosting services that are not connected directly to the outside. So then we have Amazon EC2. Amazon EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. And this is basically what we in other um, scenarios call a VM. This is my virtual machine. This is uh, my server. So EC2 service is the one that will allow you to create um, your VMs, your servers, uh, based on let's call it kind of a master image, and the image is usually called an AMI. It's an Amazon machine image. That's a specific proprietary format that Amazon uses in order to create from an AMI an EC2 instance. Okay, then we have the Amazon EBS. Amazon EBS is not really a service. It's a Amazon Elastic Block Store. Is the way how storage, uh, block storage, will be associated to specific instances, to specific EC2 um, machines. So the best way to understand this is basically what represents what in a traditional service is going to be the hard drive. Okay, and there are different types of EBS specifications, and it may differ one to the other based on IOPS, IO operations per second, type of storage, if it is permanent or not, etc. And the last element is what we call NAT gateways. NAT gateway is a service that is included as part of the Amazon's web service, the VPC. You can create a NAT service by enabling a NAT instance from Amazon. They provide you with a NAT instance, or you can create your own NAT instance. In our case, we are going to use Ingate. Not only has an SVC, but also will be the NAT instance that will be used for any um, machine that is located on the private subnet to be able to connect to the outside via the NAT instance. Okay, so let's see a little bit more in detail. So what is an EC2? An EC2 is a virtual computing environment known as an instance. So from this point on, every time I refer to an instance, I'm talking about a specific VM machine that is running, or maybe it's turned off in my VPC. Uh, there are pre-configured templates for your instance, known as the Amazon Machine Image. It's what is called an AMI. Um, it is important to know what is an AMI because every time you need to create a new machine, let's say a Windows server or a Oracle server, etc., you can go to the marketplace inside Amazon and look for a specific AMI that you're going to use as your template to create your own instance. And that's the way how uh, today we are going to provide you, in case if you want to install Separator in Amazon, we will share with you an AMI that you're going to use to create your own instances. Uh, there are several different configurations when you are trying to create an instance. So you take the AMI, which is the template, and then you have to decide which type of machine do I want. Is a what type of CPU? Is a 2-core, 4-core, 16-core? How much memory? What type of memory? How much storage? What type of storage? What networking capabilities I'm going to need? One interface, two interfaces, three interfaces, how it's going to be the IP addressing, in which subnet is going to be deployed, etc. So also you're going to need to assign some login information for your machine to be able to be accessed, and you can use secure access using SSL certificates, or you can just use the password as defined by the AMI provider, etc. Um, Storage volumes for temporary data uh, that could be deleted when you stop or terminate your instance, known as instance store volumes. You can have volumes that just disappear when you stop the machine, or other ones that are persistent. The persistent ones is what we call the EBSs. Multiple physical locations for your resources, such as instance an Amazon EBS volume, known as the availability zones. In other words, you will need, every time you create an instance, you need to associate that to a subnet, and the subnet is going to be hosted in a specific data center. Remember that when we have a region, the region is divided in availability zones. Availability zones stands for the data center. So if I have 4 availability zones on east one region, that means that there are 4 geographically separated um, data centers. A firewall that enables you to specify the protocols, ports, source IP addresses, ranges, etc. So this is something that is called the security groups. Um, every time you create an instance, you can associate a security group. You must associate a security group, or it's going to take a default security group. And in that security group, you're going to define the rules uh, for access. In other words, you can block ports, you can open ports, etc. Static IP version 4 address for dynamic cloud computing, known as elastic IP addresses. You are going to be able to launch your instance uh, adopting a public IP address dynamically, or you can use elastic IP addresses, which is a service, and associate a static public IP address for your instance. You have also metadata. Metadata is a way to provide uh, information to your instance on the fly. When you turn on the machine, the data that is on the metadata storage is going to be used. That's an interesting way for you. For example, when you start for the first time, one just recently created instance to run some initial procedures to uh, update applications, update operating system, etc. Virtual networks you can create that are logically isolated from the rest of the AWS cloud. And in other words, all the networking that you define on your VPC is private IP addressing and belongs to you and is totally disconnected from the anything else. If you want more information, there is a link. All this material is in your hands also, so you can just click on the links that I'm showing, and you can get more details, information directly from the Amazon website. So, what is a VPC? Amazon Virtual Private Cloud enables you to launch AWS resources into a virtual network that you already defined. The virtual network is closely resembles a traditional network. It's like building your own lab, building your own network. Okay? So virtual. So once you define a VPC, you are able to you have total autonomy in order to create your uh, own subnetting, um, the routing tables, network gateways, security settings, etc. So when you create the subnets are ranges of IP addresses where you can launch specific AWS resources. And usually, when you create a subnet, is because you are trying to um, accomplish some specific purpose. Like for example, um, a DMC subnet to allocate or install all your um, public accessible servers, your web server, your session border controller, etc. You can also add security components, not only um, the security components that are associated to the instance, like the security groups, but also you can associate access control list directly to the subnet. So here we see some of the components that there are a few more, but this one is the most important ones. We not necessarily will use all of them, but in a VPC you can create customer gateways. A customer gateway is one of the components that we are going to use for VPN connections. So there are three components used for IPsec VPN: the customer gateway, the VPN connection per se, and the VPN gateway. So we're going to see that in a dedicated session for that. So you have the network access control list. VPC peering is a way for you to create connections between different VPCs without having to go outside to the internet to move traffic between two separated VPCs. A VPC NAT gateway is a NAT instance. I'm sorry, is a NAT instance that you are going to use for NATing purposes and allow um, equipments behind the NATing to access the outside. Uh, the router is already part of the infrastructure when you create a VPC, and you're going to have a router dedicated to your VPC, and you have control of the routing tables. Internet gateway is a specific way to connect external, to have direct connection external uh, to any instance. When you create uh, an instance and you associate a public IP address, in reality, what is happening is the IP address is being managed by Internet Gateway, and there is a one-to-one NAT between the uh, instance interface and the router. You can allocate functionalities to create flow logs. Um, Once you have Elastic's interface, you can add and detach, attach and detach interfaces on the fly. The only interface that you cannot detach or reattach from the instance is the first interface, what we usually call the Ethernet 0. Okay, so here's kind of a quick example and some additional interesting attributes and functionalities. Here we have a AWS big container. Then we have a VPC, and this VPC is going across more than one availability zone. You see here we have availability zone A, availability zone B, and we have two different subnets, the 172.31 and the 172.31.16 and the 132.31.0. Those are two different subnets. Okay, we are using the mask 20 bits. Okay, so and the IP address of the whole VPC is 172.31.0.0 slash 16. So we took a section of this network and we created two subnets. One that is going to be named default subnet 1, default subnet 2. Now we have two instances, an instance on subnet 1, which has the IP address 172.31.0.5, and also have a public static IP 2030.113.17. Okay, and this is the public IP address that is going to be accessible from the outside, and this is happening because there is an internet gateway. And also we have a similar um, situation with the instance that is on the other uh, subnet. Okay, so you can see that we can associate then IP version. As a matter of fact, you associate always IP version 4 IP addresses to the different interfaces on your instances. You can optionally associate IP version 6 on your VPC and assign a specific IP address version 6 to your instances. You can assign multiple IP addresses to your instance. I can have the same physical interface with 2, 3, 4, 5 different IPs. Okay, there are some limitations depending on the type of machine that you are using, but there is an option to assign more than one IP address to the same interface. Um, you can define network interfaces and attach one more network interfaces to your instance, and you can do that on the fly. If you create an instance and you after your instance is already created and your software has been installed, let's say that you decide that you need an additional interface, so you can attach an additional interface. You can change or modify the security groups even when the instance is running. If you are changing rules, it's like modifying the firewall, right? You can go to the security group associated to the instance or the specific interface, and you can change values on the security group on the fly, and they are applied immediately. You control the outbound traffic from your instance. You can do egress filtering in addition to controlling the inbound to the ingress filtering. You can add additional layer of security, as we mentioned before, using the access control list on the subnet and the VPC, and also there is an option when you create the instance for your instances all run on the same tenant hardware or dedicated hardware. That's part of the options on how you create the instance. The instance can be um, totally shared hardware environment, then you have no control in reality which physical server your virtual machine is running, but also you can request to dedicate hardware for your instances, and you know that it's going to be always the same hardware in your for your specific instances. As I mentioned before, EVS is your storage component when you are creating instances, right? The interesting thing is regarding EVS is a file system that automatically replicates itself. In other words, you are protected against failures. There is a 99.999 percentage availability. And also, there are different options. When you are creating your machine, you can select the type of EVS that is going to be used. And you can select between different options. One could be more oriented to high performance access, and other could be more oriented to volume. Um, Also, elastic volumes is a feature. Having elastic volumes is a feature to EVS to allow you to change the size of any volume. You can increase, let's say that you need more space because you are storing a database inside on the same hard drive of your server. So you can enable elastic volume, and you can change the sizing of your hard drive. Um, it is important to understand that this is not the only storage capabilities you have in Amazon. This is what always is attached to your own machine, and always typically is used to host the system volume, is where the operating system resides, right? But also there are several additional storage capabilities, starting by what the service called S3. Uh, then you have database, relational database services. You have several other services from Amazon regarding storage capabilities. Okay, then when you build a VPC environment, what you're gonna get is first of all up to four availability zones, and I say up to four because not in all the regions are four availability zones available, right? Um, it depends on the region, but most of them they have three at least, and some of them have four, the most important ones, which at the end means that you have if you have four availability zones, means that you have four data centers for that region. Okay. Then you're gonna get also subnets um, for unique routing requirements. So AWS recommends using public subnets for external facing resources and private subnet for the internal resources. Uh, for each availability zone, this quick start provision one public subnet and one private subnet by default. When you create a VPC, by default, it creates two subnets, but you can decide how you want that. And that's part of the process. One of the sessions for this training is how to build your VPC. Additional layers of security that are associated to the VPC and the subnets is the access control list. You can have independent routing tables per subnet, so you can control how the traffic is going to be routed based on routing rules that you define associated to each one of your subnets. Uh, you have Amazon provided high available NAT gateways, um, or you can install your own NAT instances, uh, and you have a spare capacity for additional subnets. In other words, when you create as you are getting a /16 mask uh, network address for your VPC, you can subnet in whatever way you want. And you can start allocating subnets for specific purposes, and you can have always a spare set of addresses that you can use for later necessities. Okay, this is our original when we did the introduction, the layout that we show there. So here we have the AWS container, the big square, uh, and which represents a specific region. When you are designing a VPC, you are selecting in which region this VPC is going to be hosted. Then you have potentially up to 4 availability zones, 4 data centers, in other words. Then you have subnets. In this case, in this example, we are using this, we are calling this the subnet, public subnet. We are calling this the private subnet, another subnet here, and spare capacity. It depends on how you assign the masking for your subnetting. Okay, you are going to have on the what we call the public subnet typically all the devices that are facing the internet. Any DMZ service will be located here. On the private, you will have maybe most of your servers that are not accessible from the outside. Uh, and then you have the addressing. And any of those subnets, all the subnets go across all the availability zones. So I can have um, on the public subnet, I can have the servers running in each one of the availability zones, even they belong to the same subnet. This is interesting because if you start using more advanced services from Amazon, you will realize, for example, when you use what they call the load balancers, uh, you will uh, you will see that you can launch several servers behind a load balancer, and those servers can be residing in different uh, availability zones, and that will provide you a disaster recovery strategy because if one of the zones has a I don't know a disaster and everything goes down, you still have associated to the same load balancer, you have instances that are running in a different data center. So so that's all of the main concepts needed for to understand from AWS services. AWS is a very extensive um, list of services, and there is a lot of things to learn there. So I'm just showing a little bit of what is needed. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to trainingquestions@ingate.com. So I'll see you on the next session.